you can make it enjoyable and you can find it really rewarding. And I sort of gaslighted myself thinking, like, oh yeah, chem's going to be my subject. It's going to be, when you first start working on it, you don't have to be the best at it.
Welcome, Pranav. It's great to have you, mate. Can you just start by telling me a bit about where you've come from and what it is you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, great. I don't want to go like the entire backstory, but to start off with, I was brought up in Malaysia and I moved here to Australia in roughly when I was like 8 years old. And growing up, I went to two different high schools, latter of which was MHS. And, I just sort of developed like an academic tendency. And I really had my eyes set on medicine. And currently now I'm studying medicine at Monash University.
Congratulations. Yeah. I think how's that going so far?
It's going great so far. I'm definitely doing my best to enjoy everything that's not med as well. I'm spending a lot more effort into my extracurriculars, just because there's no strict pressure compared to my VCE or even my UCAT experience.
So what do those extracurriculars look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Recently I've got into bouldering a lot, so I really enjoy that. Getting my fingers all messed up every time I go. And I also enjoy, music. So just listening to music, TV shows, a lot more, movies as well, film, something I'm getting into, and maybe like a tad bit of fashion, but not really. Yeah.
It gives you a lot more time and you need to actually
time great. It's great. And I've moved in by myself, as well. So I'm living by myself and just the challenges and I guess like the freedoms you get with that as well. It's quite enjoyable. That's it overall.
Was that decision to move in like by yourself? Was that by necessity or was that your own?
It was a bit of both because my commute is like an hour and a half and a bit more to university. And that's just one way, my PTV. So it's getting a bit tiring, especially for those 8 a.m. lectures and workshops. So I decided, it's a great opportunity maybe to move in. And also it's a great way of just working on yourself, being more responsible for yourself. Which, when you're living with your parents growing up, a lot of responsibilities on your parents. So now I guess there's more on me and that's great as well. Yeah. And the commute is something that did impact me with my studies as well.
Okay.
So not just, for uni, but back in high school, I had to travel roughly an hour one way, an hour back to school. So that definitely, ate up my time and I had to think about ways to, maximize my time during VCE.
Did you spend any time studying on the train or on the tram or
whatever? So there was a small period of time where I was, fully locked in. I was like doing a lot of study on my train, whether it be reading like audiobooks or whether it be, looking at flashcards in the train. But, at some point in VC, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to use this time as a bit of self-care, a bit of like rest and relax, where I've just quite literally just listen to music, do a bit of mindfulness, and just sit down and enjoy the views as you're going along the train.
Okay. Well, we can delve into that soon in a little bit. But you mentioned some challenges and also some perks of living alone. What have those been so far?
Okay. So I guess the challenges is definitely the importance of taking care of yourself. So let's say one night, you eat your meal and you're just too tired from whatever you had. Maybe you went gym, you're really tired, and you don't want to do the dishes, right? And you just leave it in your sink. Next morning, you have to, wake up. Let's say you have class, you have to do all the dishes, and it keeps adding up. If you know what I mean. So you need to really be disciplined, I guess, and so it's like even if you're tired, you have to do something. And that's sort of a really great skill to have for the future because, if you're raising a family or if you're like looking after other people, there's going to be times where you don't want to do anything, but you just have to do it. In terms of like the fun parts, I guess it's just the freedom of, I can be literally doing whatever I want. Well, like I could be studying, I could be going out, whether it be bouldering or, going gym. That added freedom is really, really great. And I've been able to catch up with a lot of friends as well. And I think social life is something that's, very important for me personally. And I put like a lot of value into it, especially during like VC and even during like, my gap year. It was something that I really like cared about. Yeah. So.
And that social life, is that mostly people from your course or is sort of residency as well playing into that?
Yeah. So with social life, I guess I really enjoy, like most of my friends are from med, which tends to happen because you're seeing them quite often. But I've really had like a strong friendship with my high school friends, like, and even my, very close primary school friends as well. So I still, catch up with them often. Um, and with my high school friends, most of them are doing biomed, so unfortunately not the same course for me. But I really do love seeing them, and it's good to see a different perspective, not just, speaking by the same people in the same course. But these are the people that helped me get through my really troublesome times. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my former friends. And I genuinely believe that, you know, friends and just like having social life can elevate, you as a person in so many ways. And it's necessary to, exist and, develop and grow. Yeah.
Okay. So for a student who's going through VCE or maybe even earlier years of school and is feeling that expectation, that pressure of, oh, I don't feel like I have time for social life.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a Venn diagram one time. I think it was sleep, social life, and study. You only get to pick two.
You only get to pick two. Yeah.
That's the one. So let's say someone's got that experience. They're like, oh, I really need to study, but I also really need my sleep. How do you kind of balance that social aspect? So obviously it's really important, as you mentioned, but have you got any advice for
Yeah,
that
look,
balance?
I'm not going to say I'm some sort of social demon where I'm going out, partying every single week or whatnot and meeting new people every week. When I talk about social life, I'm really talking about meeting up with your friends and just forming a strong connection with them. This doesn't have to be in person; it can be online. During COVID, we still had a bit of a social experience by trying to organize game nights every Friday, whether it be online or whatnot. But I think in VC, when you've got so much going on all around you, it's very easy to be like, okay, I want to stop, talking to my friends as much, or I want to stop seeing them as much. I knew people who did this, right? I knew people who'd rather, go off to the library and study alone than, hang around with your mates, playing down ball in recess. Okay. So for me, I just felt that was a bit too big of a sacrifice for me. Because the way I had to de-stress was around my friends. And talking about like my challenges or like what our group shared experiences of whether it be SACs or exams that really helped alleviate the pressure and stress from UC because personally just sitting in a room by myself doing 4 or 5 hours of study was not my preferred way of studying.
Okay. So one of the things that pops up a little bit with students who have done really well at school is that they feel like they have to make a sacrifice or they have made sacrifices along the way. And you've said that that social time and with your friends wasn't a sacrifice that you necessarily wanted to make. During that time, was there something that was put to the side that was sacrificed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think in terms of social life, like in VC in general, I just want to like preface that I found that like sort of everything gets muted a little, like because you're focusing so much on your studies. It's not everything to your 100%, right? So for me personally, I know people who can manage everything perfectly, but for me, I really had to, focus on one main thing, and everything else would just decrease slightly by little. So whether it be exercise, that went down a bit for VCE, whether it be practicing my instrument, so I was playing violin, that had to go down a bit as well. I wasn't, putting in as much effort or as much time as I usually would, playing my instrument. And with friends, as I mentioned, I did make a huge effort of seeing them and like actually meeting up with them. But there were like 1 or 2 days where I just couldn't see them because I was so far behind or like I needed to catch up with my work. So that's my experience. I think, it's completely normal to like experience challenges because yes, you will be under pressure. I think the issue is like if you sort of get too worked up about like, oh no, I'm falling behind on one thing. Just know that you will catch up. Just know that, things will return to normal at the very end of it.
Okay. So if we delve into your year 12 year a little bit more, can you tell me a bit about how that whole experience was? Even VC is a whole inclusive year 11.
Okay.
How was it?
It was definitely like a roller coaster. Everyone says it. It's, full of ups and downs. And overall, I think year 12 VCE was a great period in my life. I really enjoyed it because it was just an entire like environment and the fact that I was really working on myself. It's very easy to get sort of like nowadays, put your energy and put your time to um, sort of like ideas or like different topics that are not beneficial for yourself. In VCE in year 12, you're putting so much effort and so much time for yourself. Okay. And that's incredibly rewarding if the results do come true. And you've seen that work for you. And not only like just the fact of working on yourself was great, but also I'd say the second major point would be you're in an environment where everyone else is actively trying to grow. Okay. Everyone wants to do well, or at least for me at MHS,
Particularly,
it was particularly MHS, right? Everyone wants to do well. And if you have a good group of friends, it's really motivating to have that group of friends around you. And I still made some really, great memories in year 12. And I still look back to them, go my old camera roll looking back, and it's great. Yeah.
I just suppose another factor in that is that your friends, in terms of the social environment that you were discussing, your friends are also more academically engaged, at least in the context of MHS, as you mentioned. And that's going to help with those spaces where you're like, oh, I can't hang out tonight, or I can't engage socially tonight. There's more understanding if your friend group is also working towards that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the really like important aspects of your life as well, like who you surround yourself with, and like who your friends are. So for me personally, I did sort of change friend groups as I was, trying to be more academic, because you're going to stick with people who have similar interests with you in life, and it just happens naturally. It's not like a forced or like very conniving manner of like, oh, I'm going to go be with the friends with the smart kids today, so I become smart. That's not what happens, right? If you're interested in improving yourself, you're going to put yourself in the front of the class, for example, be asking the teacher questions, and naturally you're going to be sitting with people who are trying to do the same thing. So it's not as sly and conniving as it sounds when you see people say like the friends around you define who you are. But I think like it's also important to have a balance of your friends. Don't just stick by people who you normally stick by. Make some friends outside of like the norm, like you normally stick by, that you normally might not feel comfortable around. It's really good for the future, because in university, in life, in work, you're going to be dealing with people that you normally don't deal with. And it's good to have friends from a wide variety of things, not just friends that, really interested in med, for example. You want friends that are interested in other subjects. And I've found, many people interested in various different things, whether it be like music performance, for example. So it's good to have a variety of friends, but don't be shy to, I guess, put yourself out there, and stick by people who really have the same mission as you, is what I'd say.
So in that school space, actually reaching people that aren't your immediate high school friends, were there any extracurricular activities that gave you that opportunity?
Yeah, look, my best friend from primary school, right, and he still is my best friend. I never really got to see him until actual VCE after high school,
Right.
after I moved high schools, right? Because during VCE, we really met up every single week. And guess what it was for? It was for tutoring. So there was no really extracurricular I'd see him for at that time. But obviously afterwards, I'd see him, whether it be gym or like if we go out, for just meeting up for fun. But during VCE, we'd see each other like at, like school based or academic based venues mainly. But yeah.
Okay. And in the context of year 12, were there any other activities that you that got you through that time? It's quite busy. So
Yeah. So in terms of like its activities like extracurriculars in VC or U12, I was involved in debating. And debating definitely took a lot of time for me in year 11. Because I had to go, stay up all night at Q, for like debating. And I had to go all the way back to my home, which is like 40 minutes away. And, those late nights and the time you spend, training and preparing definitely takes time away from your studies. And year 12, I just felt like I couldn't manage it, but it would be like my travel time and my, social time at school, for example, everything would, sort of like it didn't really permit for me to do that, unfortunately. But looking back, I really feel like the people who had the busiest sort of times, like the busiest schedules, actually performed really well. So whether it be like high performance, like athletes or like, people who are really good at sports, they have like intense training programs, they still manage a way to do really well. And I'm finding out now in uni, when I'm really putting myself out there, that you can still manage to pull it off, and you can really get like a holistic high school experience. Another factor that I guess like another extracurricular that I was part of was chorale. So I don't really have much of singing voice personally, but I still rocked up because my mates were going, and it was every Friday morning at 8 a.m. So I had to wake up really early for that. 5:30, wake up, get there on time. And it was a great way because it was oddly enough, very calming. Some nights we'd practice outside in the sun. The sunrise is coming up. It's frosty. It's chilly. You with your mates. It's a really nice environment. And that, camaraderie with your, friends, your high school friends, that's what made my VC experience so unique and so special for me personally. Mm.
Debating is a really good activity as well. I mean, despite those late nights, it's also a really nice opportunity for you to get together with that group of sort of 3, 4, 5, even 5 friends in your team, and like you said, with friends having aligned interests, it's a nice space because you work on it together. And yes, it takes time away from study, but I've always looked back on it and gone, oh, debating was a really nice part of school. And I was in not exactly choir, but choir. Oh, similar experience, right? Getting together on a Friday morning or a Tuesday morning and just even if it's not the activity itself, hanging out with friends is great.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you ever like doubting yourself about, oh, should I do an extracurricular? Just go for it, is my advice. If it's not working out, if you're getting so little sleep, for example, then probably, psych off or like stay away from a bit. For chorales, personally, I think it's like fixing my sleep schedule because of that one early wake up on Friday morning. I'd be so tired, I'd sleep early that night. And then next morning wake up early as well. So it's a good way of resetting my sleep schedule, which is like, all these like other factors than just, staying at home and studying can really play a benefit. And, people should definitely look into that. Yeah.
One of the things that I often asked myself as I walked into year 12 in particular was, is taking on this extracurricular activity going to negatively impact my results, my study? How did you find that your extracurriculars impacted your results? Did you feel like they supported them or took away from them?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I almost don't want to like ask myself. I just want to like, accept it and move on. Because it's a horrible feeling for you like go back and be like, oh no, the extracurriculars took so much time away from me. I could have got such a higher ATAR. But in reality, I think that's not true. I think I would have still got roughly the same scores I would have. And just to added, because they're only taking a couple hours from an entire week for me personally. Um, and I'm already spending enough time procrastinating or getting my mind distracted on other aspects. Yeah. And if you compare those 2 times of me getting distracted and me actually like, going to extracurricular, I think, they're roughly even. So if I didn't have my time spending extracurriculars, probably like I'd just be spending more time procrastinating and doing other stuff in general. Um, in terms of like, if I were to be really strict, I think that it might have, ever so slightly taken some time away from me, especially if you have a lot going on during exam season. So that very last period of your time where you're cramming, you're doing all these exams, that's the usual time where you don't want a lot going on in your life. You just want to be, eating healthy, nutritious, sleeping well, getting some sort of mindful activity. And this doesn't have to be, social, like for, chorales, for example. It could just literally be going on a walk for 15 minutes, which is a lot more time efficient. And for me, because I don't have to travel all the way to school, obviously. So just going on a walk, for example, is a lot more like beneficial for your mind and mindfulness than an extracurricular, which is why I feel like maybe towards the end it might have protracted from my scores a little. But in general, I'm still happy I did it. I wouldn't change a thing about what I did. If anything, I'd like to do more. Yeah.
What is it that you remember most from those VCE years?
The most. Okay.
Because from what you've said, it sounds like it's the social and the extracurricular stuff. Do you think that would be true for most people?
I'd say, yeah, for most people, yes. But also, I guess small academic victories or losses as well are quite prominent in my mind. They really like stick, and you can start to forget them. So whether it be your first, A plus for a SAC, for example, that was like a turning point, I guess, for me. For bio, the first time I got an A, I was so disappointed. I was like, no way, it was my very first SAC ever. But then like, next time I did, I finally got to A plus. I was really happy. And you'll find like those specific moments really like, elevate you. And whether it be for extracurriculars, for example, for debating, if you, make it all the way to the finals, that's a huge achievement. And, you're really going to remember that. So overall for me, it's really combined everything. But the standout ones are obviously the social ones because, you're definitely going to remember those good times with your mates. But, looking back, some, academic victories or losses really stick by. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was a great VCE year? Or from what you
Yeah,
described, it sounds.
no, I think when I'm looking back at memories in general, I'm really positive. When in reality, it was probably quite shit, and it was quite like troublesome as well. You know, there's so many nights where you're just waking up, like you're so tired, you just have to put in the work. Or so many mornings you just can't wake up, and it's really miserable. You might be sick. I was sick for COVID. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were sick with COVID during VC as well. That takes time away from your studies. Um, and all these negative aspects don't really come to my mind first. Personally, it's usually like the positive ones. So overall, I'm still quite happy with how things went.
Okay, so delving a bit more into your subjects, you mentioned biology was one of them.
Yeah.
What other subjects did you take on?
I did bio, maths methods, chem, spec, English, and health and human development, which is sort of my out there subject. Looking back, do I regret choosing that subject? Um, kind of, because what you'll grow to realize is like the subjects you think you'll enjoy might not be the ones that you're actually good at. I think I'm personally like a lot more attuned towards and whether it be like science, like chemistry, like maths. Um, Even though I actually enjoy like English, I really enjoyed English and humanities, but I really enjoy arts as well. But I'm just not as in like good at arts, for example. So you know, if you're picking your subjects, play to your strengths. Maybe just have one or two subjects you're just doing for the enjoyment of it. Um, but you know, what you're good at, it's not necessarily what you'll enjoy in life. I feel, and that's just something you have to accept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the subjects that you enjoy more, though, you were like more motivated to work on, even if it wasn't necessarily your stronger subject?
Yeah.
Did you feel that the motivation was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, for chem and methods, those were subjects I really enjoyed. Methods, like even though I like enjoyed it, it wasn't nowhere near as much as chem. Chem is where you have content going on, and content subjects, in my opinion, are like a lot more, um, like enjoyable and a lot more like relatable towards. Whereas if you're looking at methods, it does get a bit repetitive. So it was very skills based. Exactly, it's very skills based. So I really enjoyed the subjects that like I like, you know, obviously had like a liking towards at the very start. Um, and I did well in them as well. For bio, which is a bit of a different story, um, I enjoyed the content somewhat, but I just really struggled at it. So whether it be my first sack, I just really struggled with, you know, um, like whether it be SACs in general or like assessments. So that actually motivated me to like, you know, put in a lot of work. And I think I ended up studying for bio the most out of all my subjects because I did in year 11 and I really finished put like a lot of time into that. Um, which actually really helped me realize that you don't need as much time as you think you need to perform really well in subject if you're really smart about how you're going about things. So with exams, I did, you know, close to like I'm not too sure, but like roughly around 40 exams for bio. And looking back, I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, why would I ever do that? Um, and it's going to make no impact on your score, right? Like if you do like one more exam. And that's why in VC in year 12, when you have so little time, you have to be smart about what exams you're doing, for example. You don't want to be spamming question papers, which I see so many people do.
100%.
Just, you know, stick to recon, my advice. Really put a lot of effort unpacking that and you'll do well. Okay. So don't get too fussed about, you know, if the guy next to you's done 40 or 50 exams, you're probably going to do better than him if you've done your exams really well or like you've reviewed it really well. And that's sort of and you learn it from other people as well because you talk to the people who are getting like 50 study scores and they're like, oh, I did like 8 exams. And you're shocked. You're like, how did that happen? Like, you know, how did this person do so well without having done so many exams? And, you know, it's not linear. The amount of exams you do doesn't correlate to how well you perform. Okay.
It is amazing that we relate the number of exams to the study score. Like,
Yeah, I know.
really.
50 exams, 50 practice papers. No, that's not how it works.
Not at all. I was just the same with my year 11 subject. It was just, there's so much time to do it. Why don't I do another 7 exams?
Yeah, exactly.
But looking back, I was like, I didn't really, like you said, spend the time reviewing those exams. And in VCE, you're pressed with 5 subjects. You don't have the time to do 50 of one subject.
Exactly.
You've got to spread the load between them all.
Absolutely.
Do you have any regrets about which subjects you chose?
Oh,
Is there any you would have changed if you could go back?
yeah. Look, I'd say I'm really happy with like all my subjects. Maybe English, I was really contemplating afterwards, like, did I make the wrong decision? Because
As opposed to
Englang,
Englang.
so Englang really is like, a lot of students who do well in STEM pick Englang.
Yes.
But English, I just really enjoyed for some reason. Like every class in English, I really enjoyed. I loved reading the books. It was really like, you know, the books, I'd say changed my life even. That's how like, I sound so nerdy when I say that, but genuinely some of the texts that you read are actually, there's a reason why they're prescribing them to you. There's a reason why we spend so much time analyzing and learning about these texts because they are quite impactful.
Out of curiosity, which texts were they?
Never Let Me Go. I don't know if you've.
I have heard of it. I didn't study it, but
Yeah, it's by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I really enjoyed it. And that's, I guess, like the main book really changed my life, I guess. It's all about, impermanence, we're all mortal. How do we make the most out of our memories, which is very fitting about like year 12 and you realize that this is your final year and the memories you make, like how do you spend the time with these people? Because you're not going to see all of them again, like in the future. People go different ways. So it was really touching in that aspect. So I just wanted to talk about like my second subject, which I somewhat regret picking, which is health and human development, because I might have alluded to this earlier on, but the subjects you enjoy are not going to be subjects you perform well at. And
would you say that's a blanket statement, or is that just your experience?
No, it's just like for some subjects. Okay. It's not always the case, obviously. Oftentimes you will find that they align perfectly, which is great, but sometimes it doesn't, right? And for health and human development, that was my case. And personally, like I sort of grew to dislike it just because I was not good at it as well. So it's very correlated because subjects you think you enjoy before going into it will slowly become the subject you don't enjoy if you perform badly in it. For me, at least, I don't know. So I was performing not that well in it, so it slowly becomes something I regretted. And I was like, I spend less and less time working on it because I knew it'd be going to my bottom 6 as well. And I was just, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to focus on the subjects I really care about, which in hindsight, if you're really trying to maximize your ATAR, for example, it's not the best way you should go about it. You should, if you look at the really high achievers, they've maximized everything really well. Like they do really well all around. But for me, that wasn't the case. I was just like, I'm just going to, I like methods, I like chem, I'll do that. And I like English as well. But yeah.
I had sort of the reverse experience with specialist maths. I wasn't particularly keen on the maths, and I wasn't in the ranked top 5 or anything. But over the year, I came to recognize it as a subject that I didn't necessarily love, but I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed going, I'm not 100% there yet, but this is something that I can give some more time to and get better at. And at the end of the day, that was true. That the time that I put in the exam season, I probably did the most work on that, and it paid off. It is interesting how the effort and enjoyment correlates, and how that can change your perspective throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you did say something very interesting about optimizing your subjects and how these high achievers, sort of characterized as high achievers, have optimized everything. So if it's leading me nicely into the question of, well, for a student who maybe wants to optimize their year 12 or wants to do well for themselves, how do you get that balance between enjoyment and scaling, or enjoyment and success in a subject?
Look, that's really tricky. Because almost every person I speak to, they've got like the same subjects, English, maths, chemistry, and methods, right? And so it's very like, it's very like strict in terms of like, these subjects will give you a really good score. Oftentimes people also pick like a language for scaling. But what, like personally, I think like you can make any subject enjoyable. Okay. If you think you really hate a subject, like you might, but I think over time you'll slowly go to like your experience with Spec, for example. You can make it enjoyable and you can find it really rewarding. And for me, it's just sort of like almost gaslighting yourself and thinking you like it. For chem, like there's no reason for me to like chem. Like there's no like valid reason for you to really enjoy a subject that you never like actually learn, right? So when you're picking your subjects, you barely know that much chemistry. But for some reason, I don't know, I'd read like a book about chemistry or something along those lines. And I really liked the idea of like practicals for chemistry. And I sort of gaslighted myself thinking like, oh yeah, chem's going to be my subject. I'm going to really enjoy the subject. And same in maths as well. You sort of like when you first start working on it, you don't have to be the best at it. You can be really bad at it. But just because of like, I knew it'd be good for my grade, just because I knew that it's a good skill to have in general for maths, um, I really spent a lot of effort like romanticizing the idea of studying maths. Um, and that idea of romanticizing your study or like in general, like a subject in general, that's like being like really underrated. So just pick like what subjects do you pick? Like obviously sometimes it doesn't work out if you really hate it. For example, health and human development, it doesn't work out. But for most subjects, I think like most people can, romanticize it and actually enjoy studying for it.
One of the questions that I've been asked quite a lot in subject selection is, how do you achieve a balance between enjoyment and scaling or success? And obviously in MHS, you're surrounded by a lot of people who did choose those sort of 5 subjects you mentioned, the methods, the chem, the spec, maybe the language as well, and of course English or English language. So how do you decide? Like that is so tough. What sort of advice would you give to a student who's trying to pick their subjects?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, really spend some time reflecting about what you found strong in the past. Every student has a strong point and a weak point as well. Growing up, in like high school, early high school, you might have really done well in maths, for example. This is a good sign. This means that you should probably pick like a maths-oriented subject, whether it be maths, methods, or spec. But I did want to make the point of, the scaling subjects and the sort of like the atmosphere surrounding it. Because a lot of people, when they think about scaling subjects, they think about, oh, it's really difficult. Oh, it's very competitive. I don't want to do this. I I honestly think that mindset's really not the mindset you should have going into it. You should treat it like any other subject. You should give as much attention to it as another subject. Sometimes you do have to put way more. Like for spec, for example, it does require a lot of effort. And whether it be Latin, I know that a lot of students, these students have been preparing for Latin early on. So whether it be from early high school. So going into Latin, I guess if you're picking Latin for scaling, in year 12 without having done any previous Latin, it is a challenge and you can be very daunted and like, oh no, I don't want to do it at all. But I think that, like, don't ever doubt yourself. So for spec, um, like I never got a recommendation to do spec from my teacher. Like they just said like, yeah, methods and that's it.
Interesting.
And I was like, man, I really want to do spec because I like maths and I was also like, allured by scaling as well. I was like, man, everyone's doing it. I'll do it as well. And it's shocking that, you can actually keep up and you can actually do really well. You just have to believe in yourself. So don't ever like doubt yourself from picking a scaling subject. But at the other end of the spectrum where you're like, oh, I'm going to do scaling subjects only. Does that work out? Oftentimes you still end up doing really well, but you might not have, it's very likely to like not perform as well as you'd like to. So you still do really well because of the scaling, because of the work, but it's a bit troublesome. So overall, I'd say look back at your strengths, pick subjects you're strong at in general, even if you might not enjoy it. Like maths isn't the most exciting topic, for example, but you still want to pick it because it's useful for university entry. A lot of courses demand it, and it's good for your ATAR in general.
The reality with picking those really heavy scaling subjects, though, and that really top end of the spectrum you mentioned, which is all scaling subjects, it does occur to me that might make for a really, not even boring, but quite difficult and dragging year. Yeah. Did you feel that there were times in your year 12 where maybe, apart from those really great social moments, those really great extracurricular moments, that there was actually some really hard times, whether it be in an academic context or otherwise?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I feel like the times where you see the most change are like the times where you see the most, troubles in your life as well. And for VCE or year 12 in general, that's usually when a lot of people, including myself, felt those struggles. So there were many weeks where when I got to a code, I was out for like roughly 2 weeks. And I had to, get back on my feet, catch up. And my parents are sick from code as well, so they can't support me as much as they could. They normally would be able to. So just dealing with all those factors really impacted me. And it's okay to feel like be really behind. Okay, like I knew so many people that were behind, but they never really like spoke about it. They just kept it to themselves, and they didn't really want to like address it. But I think if you are behind, just own it. You're like, yeah, I am behind. I'm gonna eventually catch up. I might not be where I am at the moment. And I think the mindset you should have in like year 12 really is just that it's okay to not be good at something, right? In chem, for example, I was often the person that just like raise my hand up, ask like this dumbest question ever. Oh, just because I enjoyed chem, right? And I was really curious. I asked like, many questions on, and I'd try to answer questions as well, and I might not be right. And I feel like so many students are just answering these questions in their head or not really putting themselves out there. But you do want to challenge yourself like that. And going back to the question again about how like troublesome things we're getting, um, sometimes I just get burnt out. If you haven't felt burnt out, or like someone says they never burnt out in year 12, they're just lying to you. Your friends will experience burnout. You will experience burnout, especially during whether it be SAC week. Afterwards, you might be completely fried, or mid SAC week, you might be completely fried, and that's completely normal. I still experience burnout, and with uni exams this year, after exam one was complete, I was completely burnt out to study for exam two. And that's normal. Like, it's okay. You just want to think about for the future. How do I overcome it? What can I do to support myself during that time? Whether it be, taking care of yourself more, but more sleep perhaps, or more alone time or more me time. That's really important. And I think oftentimes burnout is associated with like, a lack of results when you've been putting in a lot of work as well. That's when you really, lack motivation. Because if you see like improvement every single time you practice, that's really motivating, and that you really want to keep going on. But if you don't, and this is what happens to everyone, um, like you much more likely to feel burnt out. And for me with UCAT, that was a prime example of peak burnout. I was, putting in so much effort. I was cramming, which in hindsight is really bad. I was cramming so much, um, and things did not work out. And after that, I was fully burnt out for a couple of weeks from my VCE subjects, just because I didn't perform well in UCAT, and all my effort felt wasted. Um, and that definitely did impact my grades in general. Um, but it's normal to feel that way. It's normal to experience highs and lows in VC.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it is really real that there is some hard times and some good times as well. And
Yeah,
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
yeah,
Across the year. So you mentioned the UCAT. I'm really interested to hear about your experience of that.
yeah. I mean, UCAT. So it's a bit of like a love-hate relationship, honestly. The first time I did UCAT, I just felt like I was very underprepared going into it. Um, like a bit of my backstory, I was cramming the last 4 weeks or 3, 4 weeks before my UCAT. I even pushed back my UCAT by 1 week because I just felt like I wasn't ready for it. Um, and going into like my exam, I was just really nervous. I guess I was really unconfident, and as a result, my results really showed that. Okay, and I knew as soon as I walked out, I didn't really ace it. I didn't smash it, right? Um, and when I got my results, I was probably like my first one of the first times doing it so poorly um on like an academic test in so long, because when you're trying for medicine, you're consistently building up good grades, or like trying to do well overall, and when you perform like nowhere near as well as you need to get like an interview, or like get into like your course, you're really demoralized, and that's completely normal. And I really want to like say that for anyone experiencing that, it's okay. But the second time I went around doing my UCAT, which is for my gap year, um, I really looked back on everything that went wrong the first time. And there's just so many small factors that kept adding up about why I didn't do well as well. And it's all clicking together, because in that moment when you get your result, you're in a bit of disbelief. You're like, I know so many people that maybe didn't put as much work as me that are doing really well. And it's just how life works. Some people are just going to be better at UCAT without a lot of practice. But looking back, there's actually a lot of things I could have improved on, and that generally would have made a huge difference, right? So if you're coming back from a bad UCAT mock, for example, spend some proper time analyzing what went wrong. It's really underrated. And after I did that for my actual UCAT, like revising what I could have improved on and re-implementing a new strategy, that really helped me see a lot of success.
So walk me through some of those things that you said went wrong the first time around.
Yeah, so stuff that went like really badly the first time around was I guess, cramming in general. You don't want to be cramming for UCAT at all. But if you ever are in a position of, like 4 weeks out from UCAT, and you haven't done much work, don't stress too much. Like, obviously put in some work, and be very mindful about how much effort you're doing. Because if you're doing mindless practice, and this is the trap that many people, including myself, fall into, you're not going to see improvement. Okay. And for something like the UCAT, I realized that what probably let me down the most was actually my mentality. Because, my very final exam score wasn't like my final mock UCAT score before going to my actual exam was not bad. It was decent. Okay. It was one of the best scores I got. But still, when I went in, I still felt very unconfident because all the previous ones were quite poor, especially in Med-Fi and Med-Entry. So looking back, I was like, oh, okay, my mentality is a huge difference. And I also spent a long time like realizing that, like, I'm just going to go back to that point of how my mentality was like fully bad. Because this is a really funny story. I just felt I was so stupid doing UCAT. I was like, I'm going to do everything to like improve. I'd tell my parents, give me like, buy me lots of fruit, for example, because I know like a healthy diet and everything will help me improve. So I was just, like there were a couple of days where I was just eating blueberries every single day, trying to make me, like finally like reach that magical barrier of like 3K plus consistently, for example. But looking back, that was sort of like a mechanism where I was just like coping from my like fear of like doing as well, like underperforming, which in turn led me to underperforming. So in the future, I was like, yeah, I still like focus on my diet and whatnot for the second time around. But, you need to realize that those really little things are not like as important as you make it seem. And just believing in yourself, like, you're not stupid. Not like you're incapable of doing really well. It's really important. But those were some of the major flaws. It's just like I crammed. I didn't, had that much confidence going into my UCAT. I didn't focus on the mental aspect of it. And I didn't realize what it means to be good at UCAT. Like what's the meaning of that? Yeah.
Okay, so you did your first UCAT in year 12, yeah, and you walked out with a result that you weren't happy with.
Yeah, I got into 780, which wasn't like amazing at all, right? Especially if you're metro in Melbourne, like you're not going to get any interstate offers with that score, unless you get like a 0.95 maybe. And I didn't get a 0.95. I was nowhere near that. Like I was not aiming for that, but like I just managed to scrape like a second round interview, because of my ATAR, which is good. But yeah, like, look, it wasn't that good at all. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So your interview experience that first time around,
Yeah.
Walking into that, did you have that feeling that, yes, I've got an interview, but you still kind of had a bit of that in the back of your mind? Oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? Because all these people maybe got like first round interviews, and you're doing the interviews, and you're like, oh man, I bombed a UCAT. What if I bomb this too? But no, looking back, I had like a really supportive group of like family and friends, and they were like, yeah, okay, this is your opportunity to make up for it. And that's how I saw it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna really focus a lot on the interview. I did a lot of practice for it, and I tried my best. Unfortunately, it was still not enough to get me like a direct entry into med first year round, which I accepted, which is most likely outcome. But I still think going back, it was good overall, my interview.
Okay, so during that time between the interview, unfortunately didn't get an offer the first time around. How did you make that decision to have another go? Because a lot of the talk around picking a uni degree is, oh, do you want to go and do biomed? Do you want to pursue something else? Do I have another go and do a gap year just focusing on, well, not necessarily just focusing on the UCAT, but let me have another go at it. So what led you to that decision to have another go?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I know so many people that are actually in the same position. Like there's so many people in that exact same position. You fail to realize that there are many people like that. And when you get into med, you realize you meet these people that had a very similar experience to you, who took a gap year, UCAT didn't work out first time, and they're in now. But just when you're in high school, for example, it's really hard to like know who those other people are, and you really feel isolated. For me personally, I think I was like the only person in my friend group doing a gap year. For UCAT, right? I was the only one. So it's very easy to feel isolated, and you don't want to like let go of all your friends, because oftentimes most of your friends are going to uni, you're staying back, you're not going to uni, you're doing a gap year. That really detracted like from me picking like my gap year option. I was very, very like adamant about picking it. But what really made me decide like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it, was actually like probably my family, because they actually believed in me. I'm really like grateful for that, because after like one time when you fail UCAT, when you underperform in something, it's very hard to believe in yourself that you can do really well and you can see an improvement. Um, so they told me like, you know what, you can do it. You just have to do a lot of work. I know it's gonna be pain, but you can actually improve. And at the start, I didn't want to believe in it. I didn't want to go through the pain of doing UCAT questions again and again. I didn't want to be on Medify ever again. But I was like, you know what? Maybe that's true. And because I dreamt about this dream so long and I cared about it so much, I didn't want to just let it go after one failure. And that's really what made me, was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. If I am going for it, I'm going all out. Okay. I'm not going to, put like 50% of my effort into it. You do have to go all out, because it's such a big sacrifice you're going to make. And what you go to realize is that during a gap year, there's going to be so many times where that doubt comes back. You're like, man, I should have just done a university degree instead. Man, things are not working out. Did I just waste one entire year of my life? But what really helped me, get through that doubt and fear was just, like acceptance, right? Accept that, things might not work out. That's okay. If things work out, that's amazing. That's great. Your dreams finally coming true, right? So that idea of acceptance and just understanding that you are not defined by, your performance or your results or your grades is really huge, to alleviate that stress. Because, like I said, for UCAT, mentality is huge, right? So if you're walking in and be like, oh my God, I need to do well, you're not going to do well. If you walk into UCAT, we're like, you know what, I'm just going to try my best. I'll see how things go. Things might not work out. It's okay. You're going to do well. That's the mentality you want to have. You want to have a bit of a relaxed, a bit of a calm mindset. You don't want to be on your feet thinking like, oh my God, my entire year is depending on if I like do well in UCAT or not. And obviously having things outside of UCAT really helped as well.
Yeah, it can be really tough to draw yourself out of that negative self-talk
Yeah.
mindset. Yeah, and having someone to pull you out of that and give you some positive reinforcement is excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you change that second time around? What did you put in place that was going to get you that result?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I really wanted to focus on like why I just wanted like wasn't able to do it, and I wanted to compare myself. Look, comparing, like when I say comparing, I don't mean it in like a bad way. I'm talking about like what attributes make someone better at the UCAT, and you want to focus on that. What makes a good UCAT like scorer a good UCAT scorer? And when I looked back at all my friends that did really well, for example, in UCAT, um, it's that it wasn't just that they were naturally smart. It's because the activities that they did, or the extracurriculars that they did, really complemented that. Okay. So, people that I knew that did like one practice exam and was still scored in like 95th percentile. This was someone that is really good at music, for example. Is really good and if you're good at music, you're good at concentrating, right? You're good at counting time. You're good at, that high level of concentration, for example, that's required in the actual UCAT. And I also knew people that, were really, really into reading books, like constantly on their phone reading, whether it be manga or like actual books on there, like, or webtoons, for example, just reading stuff, or novels. And they performed really well in the UCAT for verbal reasoning. I was like, okay, what are all these, different attributes that make someone better at UCAT outside of just, spamming med entry or Medify mugs? And so going into it in my second year, I wanted to focus on that. And one of the things I did was, okay, I'm going to, focus on my cognition, my cognitive ability. And one of the things I did was like, I got like a Lumosity subscription, which is, I think, like quite unique. I don't know if anyone else has done it, but like, it's like a small app on your phone that trains like your attention, your decision making, and like your logic. So it's like small logic puzzles you get. It's really fun. It's exciting, and trains your attention and speed as well. Which, in this day when you're like so like distracted by social media, for example, it's really great to have that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to train my cognition. I'm going to focus on that. And I'm also going to focus on just making my mind a lot more clear, because I found out the people that did really well in the UCAT, my friends personally, they were able to be very calm during that exam experience. And when I talked to them about their experience, they mentioned how going into the UCAT, they just accepted it. They was like, you know what, I'm going to accept it if I do bad or not. And they did really well, but barely any practice. And those are the factors that make a good UCAT score as opposed to someone that underperforms. Okay. So I focused on that. But in addition to that, I was doing a lot of practice as well. Because, you can't discount consistency in UCAT. I think that consistent practice over time is much better than cramming it because it's a skill. You can't cram a skill. You can't become a tennis player, like a world-class tennis player in 1 week. You need time for it, right? Your brain needs to adapt to that sort of time pressure, the ability to think. That's why, when everyone says, you can't cram UCAT, they actually mean it and it's very accurate. So if you are, in a position where you do have time before UCAT, now's the time to start practicing early, start being consistent, because it does make a huge difference. It's like any other sport, for example. And the idea of approaching it like it's some sort of sport is something that really improved as well. It is a bit like of a high performance sport if you think about it. You're going in for 2 hours, you make or break, and you're walking out, right? It's similar to like a match of tennis, for example. And there's a lot of things that you need to focus outside of just practice. You need rest. You need good sleep, for example, to perform on the UCAT. You can't be downing yourself. It's a lot of a mental game. In sport, the mental game is just as big as the physical aspect of it. If you believe you can do it and you really want to go for it, you can do it. And that's what I really focused on the second time around, was that mental aspect. So whether it be taking time off for myself, going on walks, focusing on mental health, especially during the very lead up to it, reading books as well to improve my verbal reasoning, and luminosity and just everything in general. I guess I had a much more holistic approach than just spamming exams. Even though I did do a lot of practice, I did roughly 40 exams for UCAT, but that's just because I had the time. I was willing to put in a lot of effort. I'm not saying you need to do 40 exams to see the improvement I saw, but that holistic approach is very important.
Yeah, that was what I was going to follow up with, actually, is that you've got the extra time, you've got the room, not burdened by year 12 and the other expectations to spend the time delving through that marathon that was the UCAT. And you've
Absolutely.
clearly walked away with a much better result and
Yeah.
and have successfully got into med. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that you don't sit the MMI again?
Yeah.
Okay, so you only sat the one interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So Pranav, if you had to give one final tip for the UCAT, I know it's hard to boil down 2 years of effort into one big tip.
Yeah.
But if you had to give one tip for the UCAT, what would that be?
Look, I think the second time around was really a lot focused on mental aspect, as I mentioned before, because you have so much more pressure than the first time as well. And looking back, there were times, you just break down. You're just you're so unsure about your future. You just get obsessed about that day, about what's going to happen. And you really want to stray away from that. You don't want to get into that idea. So the one major tip I'd say is focusing on your mental health and being confident. Okay. Confidence generally, whether it be for VCE exams, SACs, UCAT, being confident makes such a huge difference in how you perform in anything, whether it be bouldering, for example. That confidence of, I can do it is great. And how do you build your confidence? You build your confidence through hard work, through practice, right? If you're cramming it, you're not going to feel as confident because, you cram, you can't, your scores might not be showing that improvement. So obviously you're not going to perform as well. Second time around, I knew I'd done the work. Okay. I knew I did more work than most people. And I had a huge advantage as well in that I'm sitting it the second time around. And you need to be aware of all your advantages going into it. You're like, man, I've done the UCAT before. I've done all this work. I've done, this live mocks. I've got that experience. And then going into this exam second time around, I did face a bit of a hiccup in that I had to wait an extra hour for my UCAT because it was so delayed. And that's not something you normally expect, but you still, because of your confidence, you can get through that. And I was still, happy, sitting confidently in the waiting room, ready to do my UCAT. You want to have a bit of excitement, and overconfidence is bad, but being confident, in general, overconfidence is better than underconfidence. So if you ever feel oh, I'm not, maybe I'm being too confident, don't doubt yourself. Just be confident, go for it. Believe in your strengths, believe that you can do it, and really, really, really give it 100%. When you're walking out of the UCAT, I was completely exhausted. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was so tired. and that's the amount of effort you should put in, and the results would show.
Yeah. Did you feel relieved walking out of the UCAT that second time?
Not really, I'd say. I was like, oh man, I don't think I did as well as I actually would have liked to. I knew I didn't do well on some self-tests. But looking back when I got my results, I was like shocked for the first time. I was like, wow, I actually did well. I don't know how that happened. And it's a good change. It was a good surprise. And yeah, that really made my year.
Well, your good result is certainly a sum of all of your many, many efforts, and just an incredible respect for your resilience. And
No, I'm sure
you've been going.
Yeah, you've done many brilliant things as well. If you're getting into med, like everyone's going through the same sort of struggles. Everyone in meds, just like face just as many struggles, if not more. You just don't hear about it. And I'm not painting myself as some sort of struggle struggle victim or anything. Like I had it fairly chill. My parents were encouraging a gap year. For a lot of students, their parents don't want them to do a gap year. They just want to go straight into a degree. So I was really fortunate if you think back and look back, and I'm really happy overall about how things went, and I'm grateful for my privilege. Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much for sharing with me this morning. This discussion and sharing all of your insights into the UCAT and how that all went with your gap year as well. So I really appreciate you coming in, and thank you very, very much for that. Thank you so much. That's a great interview.